The planets are the most important parts of astrology. Everything in astrology relates to the planets. Without the planets, nothing happens. Now, this may come as a surprise to you. Most people think that the signs are the most important part of astrology. After all, the mating call of the 1970s was, "Hey baby, what's your sign?" Not, "Hey baby, where are your planets?" The thing is, when people ask, "What's your sign?" what they're really asking is what sign your sun, a planet, is in. Now, technically, the sun isn't a planet, it's a star. For that matter, the moon isn't a planet either. It's a satellite orbiting the Earth, which is a planet, but which doesn't appear in astrology charts, because the chart is a map of the heavenly bodies as seen from the Earth. For the purposes of astrology, the term planets includes the sun and the moon. Consider that the planets are like the actors in a play. The sign a planet's in is the role that actor plays. You can have an actor just being him or herself, not playing a role, at least theoretically, but the role itself can't stand on its own without an actor playing it. The planets fall into different categories, and the most important distinction between the planets is the inner planets and the outer planets. The inner planets are the 7 planets that are visible to the naked eye. These include the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These 7 planets were the only planets used in astrology for thousands of years, until Uranus was discovered in 1781. The inner planets are the closest to the Sun, and they have the fastest orbits. Saturn, which is the slowest of the inner planets, completes a cycle of the zodiac every 29.5 years. The inner planets are also known as the personal planets, because these planets have the greatest influence on an individual's personality. The outer planets are not visible to the naked eye, and they're relatively new to the scene. Uranus was discovered in 1781, Neptune was discovered in 1846, and Pluto was discovered in 1930. The outer planets move much more slowly than the inner planets. Uranus, which is the fastest of the outer planets, takes 84 years to complete a cycle of the zodiac. Neptune's cycle is 165 years, and Pluto takes a full 248 years to orbit the Sun. These planets represent issues that are much bigger than any individual. They relate to the cycles of world events and how changes in society affect our lives. In 1978, another important body was discovered called Chiron. Chiron is technically an asteroid, but what makes Chiron notable is that it's not part of the asteroid belt. In fact, Chiron's orbit takes it from inside of Saturn's orbit to outside of Uranus's orbit, effectively bridging the gap between the inner and the outer planets. For this reason, many astrologers, including myself, include Chiron in their charts. Chiron is basically considered one of the outer planets. Now it's time for some straight talk about sect. Sect is a word that comes from the Latin word secco, which means to cut or to divide. In astrology, sect refers to the division between diurnal, or day planets, and nocturnal, or night planets. Sect is the first classical astrology technique that we'll learn, because it will help us create a context for understanding the nature of the planets. Now, the most important concept to understand about sect is the balance between showing forth and appearance. Showing forth means expressing the true nature of a thing without guile or deception. It's what you see is what you get. Planets that show forth are unchanging and constant. Appearance, on the other hand, is just the opposite. With appearance, looks can be deceiving. These planets will change, and they often hide their true nature. The more diurnal a planet is, the more it shows forth, and the more nocturnal a planet is, the more it appears. It makes sense that the two extremes when it comes to sect are the Sun and the Moon. The Sun defines the diurnal sect, and it's the most diurnal planet. The Sun is entirely about showing forth. The sun can never be anything other than exactly what it is, and the sun expresses its true nature with a blazing and blinding intensity. The moon, on the other hand, is all appearance, and it defines the nocturnal sect. It has no light of its own, and it only reflects the light of the sun. While the sun is constant and never changes, the moon changes its appearance every night. Starting with the sun, the most diurnal planet. The next most diurnal planet is Jupiter. After Jupiter, Saturn is the next, being somewhat diurnal. Mercury is completely neutral. It is entirely bisexual. Mercury is equally diurnal and nocturnal. It's equally showing forth an appearance. Venus follows Mercury, and it's slightly nocturnal. Mars follows Venus, and it's very nocturnal. And finally, the moon is the most nocturnal planet, being all appearance. You might be surprised to see Mars, a very masculine planet, listed as a nocturnal planet. Now, don't confuse diurnal and nocturnal with the other polarities like masculine and feminine, or active and receptive. Mars is one of the most active, expressive, focused, masculine, and aggressive planets. Mars is also nocturnal. This means that Mars is not always what it appears to be. Mars, in fact, is very much the used car salesman of the zodiac. As we get to know each planet in turn, we'll take some time to explore how each planet's sect expresses as a part of that planet's fundamental nature.